Back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Let's start with me establishing just how old I am. The last game I saw like that, like I don't do that every show I do. Last game I saw like that, 1992, I'm covering the Vikings for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. The Vikings are down like 20-0 at halftime, and they come back and beat the Bears. Todd Scott picks off a Jim Harbaugh pass, runs it in. I know you were only 2 years old at the time, but you might remember it anyway.
I do remember it.
And Harbaugh goes to the sideline. Ditka lights him up. Metrodome's going crazy. And that was kind of the moment where people said, okay, Denny Green's for real. It was a remarkable game. But the big difference between that game and what happened on Sunday at U.S. Bank Stadium was a defensive touchdown can change everything. It can make life really easy. The Vikings didn't win because of a defensive touchdown or a fluke. They went out after scoring 0 points in the first half, and they scored touchdowns on all 4 of their second half drives. They did it against a good defense and a very good defensive coach and a very good cornerback and one of the best pass rushers in the game. They did it under great pressure, and they did it without Adam Thielen and Josh Klein, of course. I'm thoroughly impressed. I don't know what this means for the future. I don't know if this means Cousins is now a great quarterback. I just know that is a heck of an accomplishment.
It was, and if I remember from that Bears game, I think there was didn't Ditka and Harbaugh get after it because Harbaugh called an audible on the play, and he wasn't supposed to do that, and it was this big controversy or something like that. So yeah, that was a good time. I do remember that game, but yeah, in this one, it was a situation where it was an avalanche that just fell on the Broncos' heads, and I did not see it coming either. I mean, it looked like in the first half it was going to be another one of those games that we have seen in this Zimmer tenure and probably really in the Vikings history all aboard, where you come in, you figure you're going to win, and then you just get thumped. I mean, the Buffalo game, the Colts game a few years back, you look at all of those types of things, this is where it's going. I mean, they weren't just not playing well, they were playing dumb, like stupid penalties, bad decisions, all sorts of things, at turnovers, fumbling kickoffs and things like that, and you're just like, what are these guys doing? And I don't know how the switch was flipped so quickly, but they come out of the gates in the second half. You hit the deep ball to Diggs, and then they just started storming against them. I mean, it was as drastic a change from one half to the other as I can remember seeing.
And let's get into why and how that happened and what it might mean as the Vikings head into a bye week. This is the Viking Update Show with John Krasinski. I'm Jim Souhan. Our producer Brandon Morton is here running the board. Thank you to our sponsors, Twill in the Dining Galleria, Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent, and BiteSquad.com, promo code TalkNorth. Also, please follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. What's interesting here is that Cousins really did hit a crisis point. He was not great second half of last year, especially in big games, and then throws the one terrible pass in Green Bay, looks overmatched against a Chicago team that now has fallen completely apart. And Thielen calls him out. Diggs looks unhappy. We surmise part of that is that the quarterback wasn't getting him the ball. I mean, it was a true crisis point. And Cousins follows up with the best month of his career. Then they have kind of a letdown game against Kansas City. Then he plays well enough to beat Dallas. And this game, though, this felt different. This felt like his team was rallying around him. In the locker room afterward, players were going out of their way to praise him. Again, you can't pretend that we can predict how things are going to play out from here, but it feels like a different Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, this felt legit, what we saw on Sunday against the Broncos in that second half. And because I think that there was a lot of frustration in the first half with what had frustrated us about Cousins prior to his hot streak, where not taking chances, checking down. I mean, there was the one where he draws Denver offside and still checks down to C.J. Hammond. I thought Diggs was going to strangle him.
And Diggs was right.
And he was right. He was right to want to do that. So Diggs was starting to show his signs of discontent, and it was looking really, really ugly. I think he had only thrown one or two incompletions, but all of them were just little dump-offs and little checkdowns, and you're like, something's going to have to change here. And then it did, and some of the throws that he made in that second half, the 54-yarder to Diggs for the touchdown was an absolute bullet. And he hits Diggs deep on the play that set him up coming out of the halftime. Even the rollout and then finding Rudolph, I think there was some trickery there that was able to work. He just made really big throws in really big situations. And I think one thing to underscore, which you've already said, is Denver has a really good defense. And the 3-6 record, now they're 3-7. I think you can get fans to look at that and say, Denver's trash. They're not really trash. They are good. They've played a tough schedule. They've lost some close games. But that defense is a very good unit. And so when you go 4 for 4 on touchdowns and when you shred them the way that they did in the second half, the way that Kirk Cousins did, I mean, that is something to feel good about. I think that's as important as beating Dallas in Dallas on a Sunday night. I mean, we're seeing all of these different flash points with Cousins. Well, he doesn't win on the road. Well, he doesn't win in big games or primetime games. Well, he doesn't beat good teams or good defense. Well, he's never had a fourth quarter comeback. One by one, these are all being checked off. And it seems like there is momentum going in the right direction for him. And it seems like he has a really good grasp of what he needs to do.
I'm going to offer what I think was the football reason for them getting things going in the right direction. We do want to thank Twill in the Edina Galleria. Twill Edina on Instagram is a great place to see all their beautiful and yet casual, and I mean, they got everything there. Check it out. They have Robert Talbot, Peter Millar Crown Shop, Hickey Freeman. I wear the Johnny O and the Trask and the Brack stuff all the time. TwillMN.com. I'm here with my wife, Stacy. We went to Twill in the Edina Galleria the other day. We saw Scott Dayton, and I bought the nicest sport jacket I've ever owned, the most comfortable pants I've ever owned. They're Bracks, a nice pair of loafers that I can wear to the ballpark. I think they're called Tracks. And I bought a bunch of Stenstrom short-sleeve shirts to go with my Stenstrom nice dress shirts. And, I used to wear just disposable clothes. Now when I buy something, I buy it at Twill. I know it's going to last me the rest of my life, and it's going to be comfortable.
And on top of that, it's not just the best stuff you've ever had, but it's really everyday things that you can wear and that will fit all occasions.
Twill in the Edina Galleria, TwillMN.com, Twill on Instagram. I think the football reason, it partly was they played better, partly it was Cousins had to be more aggressive. I thought as soon as he hit Diggs deep, that loosened things up. I thought then all of a sudden the underneath routes, there was more room for running and catching. I thought it kind of emboldened the offense, emboldened the play calling. I thought that's what it got it going.
Yeah, I think that needed to happen. And I mean, Diggs did not have a catch in the first half at all. I think he maybe had one target that he caught, but it was called back on a penalty. And he was very upset, and he was yelling at coaches on the sideline, and he was gesturing in the huddle, get him the ball, and I think like what we have seen so often from him, from Diggs, and from this offense is like he is the one home run hitter in that passing game. Dalvin has had an unbelievable season, but it is clear that the Broncos were just really loading up on him and just like, you're not gonna run on us today. And so to be able to do that really did put the Broncos defense on their heels. And then later in the game, there were a couple of plays where Diggs is lined up in the slot, and even though he didn't get the ball, he just attracted so much attention from the Broncos defense that it opened things up for others. The swing pass to Dalvin Cook, I think it was a 21-yarder. Diggs comes over the middle, and like the linebacker and the safety are all trained on him. Dalvin slips out the side, and they dump it off to him, and it's 21 yards. I mean, that's the kind of gravity that this guy can really command. And so they needed to really blow the roof off the place to get back in it. And so they come out of the third quarter, they hit the 44-yarder to Diggs to set up their touchdown. Now they have a score on the board in less than, I think it was like 2.5 minutes in. And now, now you're rolling a little bit. And now you think you have a chance and belief, because not only was it a score, it was a really quick score. And I just think that got everything rolling. I totally agree.
Now they're 8-3. They have a long bye because their next game's on a Monday night. They're probably going to get Thielen, Josh Klein, Anthony Harris back. I'm probably forgetting somebody. There's probably somebody else I'm missing. And Linval Joseph, maybe not. But they're going to be a healthy team on a winning streak, playing in a place that's very difficult, but against a team that has its flaws. I mean, now you look at the rest of the season, and you don't see any unwinnable games. You see 3 home games, 2 tough road games, but neither of them against great teams. I mean, we might now be looking at 11, 12-win season, maybe home field advantage.
Yeah, it's really possible. And, it's funny because we started this season talking about what it might take to win the North, and you thought 10 games might do it. But the way that Green Bay is playing, they're playing very well, and it might take 12 or 13 to get there. And, yeah, I think that the way this stacks up, the way that the Vikings are playing, the momentum that they've had, and now the ability to get a little bit of a breather and a rest and heal up, it does set up very well for them. You have at Seattle, then you have the Chargers, and you have the Packers and the Bears at the end of the season. But all of these games that you have are winnable, and it all is right there for them. They have some home games coming up. That's going to be a help for them. And it's so crucial for them to stack as many wins as possible right now because they play like a different team at home. And if they can get a playoff game or 2 at home, that just gives them such a big advantage over the rest of the competition when they're trying to go deep into the playoffs. And so they should come out of this thing brimming with confidence. And we'll see how that goes. But they are going to that's a major, major test in Seattle on a Monday night coming out of the break. But the way that they have played lately, you certainly have to say that they should go in there believing that they can win.
The interesting thing about Diggs is that he obviously was causing problems. Somehow they kind of got him back on their page, at least to get through the season. And he's not only been a very good player, he's been fascinating to watch. You wrote about it, all the emotions on the sideline. A lot of his teammates were praising him for bringing a lot of fire yesterday. Do we know exactly, was it as simple as he wasn't getting the ball enough, or do we think there's something else that was going on when he was becoming a bit of a problem?
No, I don't know I don't know specifically the exact problem, but the way that I read it is that things are not going well. I am not getting the ball. Get me the damn ball, and things will go well. And the issue, though, is he was doing it very demonstratively. Everyone in the stadium knew he was pissed off. Adam Thielen is trying to calm things down. Anthony Harris, a bunch of guys are coming over and and it wasn't working. And
Adam Thielen has proven that if there's a way to get on your quarterback, it's in public at a press conference.
That's exactly right. But I think he was upset because they were getting their butts kicked and he was not a part of things and he thought he could change it. Turns out that he could. And again, that kind of goes back to what we've talked about a lot on this show and certainly written about a lot that is why a no-nonsense coach like Mike Zimmer puts up with nonsense from Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is a different set of rules for him, and it's because he is so damn good. And so, like what Dalvin Cook said, is that he has a ton of energy on the sideline, but he backs it up on the field, and that's what he did in the second half. The 44-yarder, the 54-yarder was an unbelievable play, and he just almost single-handedly turned the energy in that stadium from booing and from negative to just raucous and positive. I mean, he is prowling up and down the sideline, jumping up and down, and just willing the team and the crowd to get into this thing. And it was an unbelievable show just to watch him on the sideline. But it is volatile, and you have to deal with it. I did get a chuckle because he said, one of the quotes that's getting a lot of attention is, he said to us, you guys are all too hard on Kirk.
It's hilarious.
You walked out on Kirk. 2 days after the Chicago game, you are walking out and quitting on him. So let's just pump the brakes on that a little bit. But That's the diva wide receiver. Like, that's what they do. That's Terrell Owens crying for Tony Romo and saying, that's my quarterback. Like, they have this polarized, unbelievable view of the world that is so detached from